in our co-main event, boys, we have a very fascinating matchup in the lightweight division as number 3 Dustin Poirier will be taking on number 12 Benoit Saint-Denis, and what a chance this is for Saint-Denis to basically in one fight become a future legitimate title hopeful, but to do so he's going to have to get through one of the best lightweights really of the past decade in Dustin Poirier, who comes into this fight off his second round head kick TKO loss to Justin Gaethje back in July at UFC 291. Poirier is 3-2 in his last 5 with 2 wins over Conor McGregor and 1 over Michael Chandler. His opponent, Benoit Saint-Denis, comes in riding a 5-fight win streak with 5 finishes. His last win was a second-round head kick knockout, and something to watch there, right? Over Matt Frevola back in November at UFC 295. And man, like I said, a win here would just absolutely change the trajectory of BSD's career, and a win for Poirier would see his title aspirations continue because, on the contrary, it's hard not to think a loss would probably end any future title hopes for Dustin Poirier, at least at 155 pounds. What's up, 165?
Yeah.
I just think it'd be incredibly tough, though, for Poirier to get back to a title should he lose a guy, in Benoit Saint-Denis, who's not only ranked lower, but outside of even the top 10 currently, regardless of how good he is. So, Brandon, who are you taking in this one?
Yeah, so this one's really interesting, right? Like, it's a jump for Benoit. Like, to me, it kind of seems like when Gamrot moved up and he was fighting Dariush. Like, I kind of have vibes like that. Now, what's playing in my mind here is the Poirier-Gaethje fight, right? The head kick knockout is not a good way to go out. Like, I really don't like that. We just saw Volk have a fight after coming off a head kick knockout. Now, granted, it wasn't the same short amount of time in between fights, but Gaethje fought Fiziev. It was kind of a similar scenario. Fiziev's coming up as a sort of a newer guy in the division. Gaethje puts him away. This is kind of Dustin's chance here, right? Yeah. Coming off that loss to Justin, though.
Yeah.
So I like Benoit here, man. I like the energy. I like the surge, and I like the finishing rate as well. And just coming off that head kick KO for me with Dustin, man, I just don't like that. And like, you have the wins with McGregor, which were just kind of weird ones, and then you have the loss to Oliveira. Like, he just kind of had a weird run of form as of late, and I just think it's Benoit's time, man. I just think it's a little late for Poirier at 155, so I'm taking Benoit. I like him to finish, mostly because, again, Dustin's coming off that head kick KO again, so I'm going to take Benoit by second round KO.
John, what you got?
Is this 5 rounds, right?
Yes, this is a 5-round.
Okay,
yes.
I just wanted to make sure because, obviously that plays a little bit into this.
Yeah.
Man, this has been the kind of pick 'em one for me in my head, where it's just like there is a side of coming off the head kick, but that was in July. There's been a good distance of time since then for him to kind of heal up and kind of regroup.
In theory.
Yeah.
And for Benoit, this is the biggest, this is a huge jump in talent. I mean, Matt Frevola was a very good fighter, but we're talking about a title contender. So it is going to be interesting to see how that holds up. I do know that, like you said, with the head kick, maybe there's a situation where Dustin Poirier is keeping his hands real high. That's opening for the takedown with God of War loves to do that. Sweet nickname, by the way. I had to plug that because it's one of my favorites. But I don't know if this is going to be kind of what we've seen in the main event of the last card and we've seen in other cards, maybe a little bit too much too early for Benoit. So I like the 5-round. I like the experience and savvy that Poirier brings. So I'm going to actually take Poirier here. I think he's going to win by decision because I think that Benoit is really tough to knock out. He does get hit, but I think that he'll stay in there. But I do like Poirier by decision.
Yeah, I think kind of what both of you guys are saying is like kind of what I'm thinking is, and I may still have my Volk Ilya glasses on here, but I like this fight for Saint-Denis, and the similarities between the Volk Ilya matchup and this one are very apparent, with the exception of a title, but the age gaps are similar. The younger guys both have well-rounded skill sets, a country behind them even, and man, BSD is just an absolute finisher as well, and I do wonder if the Gaethje fight was the first step of a deteriorating Poirier who's been in some insane wars. Even the fight before that against Chandler was crazy. And one thing that's got him through those wars and on the winning side of most of them was the heart, the chin, the durability. So what happens when those are gone from Poirier's game? Now I'm not so quick to dismiss that inner dog in Poirier. And there is one aspect of this fight that I'm having a hard time looking over, and John mentioned it right off the top, and that is the 5-round aspect of this fight. And that advantage has to go to DP here, without a doubt. And I think there's a reason Dustin wanted the 5 rounds in this fight. He wants to try to drag Saint-Denis into some deep waters and see if he can swim. And if there's one guy who I think is capable of withstanding, say, a 2-round storm and then pulling off some big movie-esque win comeback, it's Dustin Poirier. And even with Saint-Denis' power, I don't hate this striking matchup for Dustin, man. Saint-Denis tends to get a little flat-footed, obviously to load up on the power, and he also tends to leave his head kind of on that center line, probably because he does trust his chin so much, which has held up well, to be fair. And Dustin has some pretty good footwork, though. And if he can deploy some sort of like stick-and-move game plan early, possibly mix in some big leg kicks for the later rounds, it'll add up. I think he can get deep in this fight. And if he gets into round 4, he could possibly take this fight over and finish it. So I'm going to take Dustin here as well, and I will take a 4th round submission for Dustin. I'm like John. I went so back and forth all week, could not decide. I don't think there's really a bad pick here, because one thing that was like the 5-round thing was kind of the tilting point for me. But one thing I was having a hard time getting is, man, I think Benoit Saint-Denis is big. He is a big, strong dude. And when he unleashes that God of War, I mean, maybe he just comes out and just bullies Dustin and gets him moving backwards and all over the place, right? Because even going back to that Chandler fight, like Dustin got off to a bit of a slow start in that fight. I
forgot about the Chandler fight, to be honest.
And he cannot get off to a slow fight like that against a guy like Saint-Denis, because Chandler's got finishing power, but Benoit Saint-Denis has otherworldly power.
Well, Poirier's had fights at 170 as well, so he's used to, he's had some instances where he's been in there with big guys. So.
I think for Saint-Denis to win, though, it's got to be inside of 2 rounds. I would be really shocked if this thing goes deep, if he finds a way to finish. Maybe he'll still be dangerous in the later rounds, but I don't know.
I mean, he does have the submission threat as well, so it'll be interesting to see how. I think it'll either be a passing of the torch or it's going to be the old guard is still here.
Yeah, and I don't really see this so much as like, how we were talking about with the Rosenstruik and Gaizeev. This isn't that much. This isn't that crazy. Like, Saint-Denis has looked like he's ready for this level.
Yeah.
And I know he's taking a big step and all that stuff, but I don't see it as being that outlandish. So that's the only thing I will say.
And I think that's what the tell is. It's either going to be he was ready for this, or man, maybe one more would have been 100% a little bit better.
Yep, 100% agree.